Welcome back to another episode of What's Poppin' in Podcasting Live. My name is Maribel Quesada Smith. I am with BIPOC Podcast Creators, and
I'm Tangia Estrada, also co-founder here at BIPOC Podcast Creators. So quick heads up for the new folks in the group. So What's Poppin' in Podcasting Live was something that we did live at first every week and then every other week inside the Facebook community. And then recently StreamYard doesn't allow us to do that inside of groups anymore. So we had to come up with another solution. So now What's Poppin' in Podcasting is pre-recorded and posted in the same day in the
so
group.
it's live to tape. And by the way, it's not
Yes.
StreamYard that's not allowing us. It's actually Facebook
That's
that
right.
changed
Sorry.
something that
Correct.
doesn't allow StreamYard to go live on Facebook anymore. So
Yes, Facebook isn't they're trying to force everybody to use their shitty creator studio. And it's terrible. We've tried it.
yeah,
And
no,
we're not doing it. So.
it's not for me. Yeah. So this, if you're new to BIPOC Podcast Creators, this is the part of what we do. This is one of the content pieces that we create so that you can have an insight into what's going on in podcasting. We try to keep it to 15 minutes or less. And we talk about a few things that are going on in the headlines, as well as what's happening in our group, in our membership, and in our creator community.
Correct.
So,
all right.
Some news.
First up. So if you've been paying attention to the email that went out almost 2 weeks ago now, we have created a new ambassador program. Yay! Cue streamers.
Cue confetti.
Yeah, confetti. That's the word I was looking for. I couldn't remember it. Cue confetti. Now, this is exciting for us because it's an opportunity for us to elevate more folks from the community, to do more networking events that you all love, right? And to create just more partnerships and opportunities to get like the, so to speak, movers and shakers and leaders in the industry together within this community. So we're excited about it.
We are excited about it because it also gives us an opportunity to get to know you all in a deeper level. Once we select our ambassadors, depending on what areas and locations, we'll have more connection to what's going on locally. We'll be able to get to know you and what you're doing, and that's what's exciting for us as well, because part of why we created this community was to have community, and actually get to know folks and help each other out. So we started with the DC metro area. We have made our selection there, and we'll be making the announcement soon. But we are very excited because in the near future, we will be selecting ambassadors in some other locations.
Right. And so some of the benefits of that are like those ambassador folks are going to get. My son is home, so you'll hear him. He's talking to himself. But some of the benefits of being selected as an ambassador means that those folks will get exclusive networking opportunities with leaders in the business. When we have the resources available, it could mean that they get passes to big conferences, complimentary, like Podcast Movement coming up, right?
And that's actually, honestly, I think that's a really big benefit. When I was starting out in podcasting, just the thought of having to buy that ticket, that entry into the conference, was like, oh my gosh, another line item, another expense for me. So it's something to consider. It's a big benefit. The benefit of being around a whole lot of people who are doing the things that you want to do, or the things that you're already doing, connecting with them and having that collaboration and that networking is super valuable. I mean, that's how Tangia and I met. So that's another reason why we wanted to do that as well.
Yes, exactly. So we're excited about the launch. Again, like Maribel said, we're starting with someone in the DC area. Thank you to everybody who has emailed us. We have gone through all of the emails and we are making that final selection soon. There's some really great candidates in there. So if you applied and didn't get selected this go round, don't be discouraged. It doesn't mean that there isn't another opportunity coming down the pipeline, because there most definitely are other opportunities coming down soon. So. I can't hear you, Maribel.
Of course, because I muted myself. Oh my goodness. I was saying, and if you haven't gotten the email or didn't get the email, it's probably because you haven't joined our community. So make sure you're on our email list at bipocpodcastcreators.com/newsletter. That is how you become part of our creator community at BIPOC Podcast Creators. And you can also visit our website to learn more at bipocpodcastcreators.com. Tangia, tell them about this other opportunity we have right now inside of the group.
Yes. So, Empowered Podcasting Summit is a brand new podcasting summit that's going to be happening in North Carolina on June 28th through 30th this year. It's the first year. Charlotte. Yes, specifically North Carolina. It's an exciting time. So it's being created by Lloyd George, who is a creator in the community, and very exciting for him. Very proud of him to see all of the things that he's created. And he's been so gracious and so generous to extend 7 complimentary tickets to creators inside of our community. Now, to access the tickets, if you haven't yet, you have to go to the pinned post inside the community. So get in there, find out if those 7 tickets are still available, because it is first come, first serve. He's an awesome creator. I have no doubt that it's going to be a wonderful summit. So if you can take advantage of that opportunity, please do so right away before all of the tickets are gone. I don't know if the complimentary tickets are gone, but I did see that Lloyd said recently that the conference itself was almost completely sold out. I think there was like 10 tickets left or something. So you should jump on it.
Better hurry up. Go to BIPOCpodcastcreators.com. Check out the join button right there when you land on the page, and it'll take you to where you need to go. It'll have the link to our Facebook community. And once you're in the community, you'll be able to see the pinned post at the top where you can learn more about the Empowered Podcast Summit happening June 28th to 30th, which, by the way, is tomorrow. so
tomorrow.
Hurry up. All right.
Oh, crap, it is
Next
tomorrow.
on the docket, we have the Ambies submissions opening. Actually, they're already open. My bad. So Ambies submissions are already open. Make sure that if you don't know what the Ambies are, you might want to do some research. Go to the podcastacademy.com and learn about the Ambies. The Ambies are the awards for excellence in audio. And so basically, they're the biggest awards in podcasting right now. A lot of people from our community actually have submitted, have been nominated, and have won in the past, have won Ambies. So, you know, if you are someone who's creating something amazing, a good show, a good podcast, you should consider submitting. I would say that awards can be subjective, right? It's always kind of tough. Some people are like, I hate awards, or, BS, whatever. I'll tell you, these awards specifically, the Ambies, because I've been a judge in the past as far as like a, part of the judging committee. And then everybody gets to vote. So the cool thing about it is that we try to be very, very subjective. It's actually one of the most subjective awards that I've been a part of. And then the other thing is that everybody who's a member of the Podcast Academy, a member of that academy, gets to vote. So it's a vote by your peers. It's not like a popularity vote. It's not a 5-person decision. It's everybody in the Podcast Academy gets to vote. Now, that said, not everybody shows up to vote, or not everybody clicks on the button, unfortunately. But that's also really important. So as people who want to see people of color growing in this industry and growing in the creation space, we really need to make sure we either submit our work, or at the very least, we need to vote, y'all. Because that's one thing that people complain all the time. They're like, oh, only the big shows get nominated, or only the big shows win. That's fair. But it's because they have brand recognition and they have a lot of their colleagues in the Podcast Academy. However, we also have a lot of creators in the Podcast Academy. We have some memberships available to the Podcast Academy. If you're interested, make sure you're signed up for the newsletter and you will get that information. So you can have the same access. It's just that you need to be able to choose to do that. We can't force it. But
Right. So don't be discouraged. The Ambies are sort of the Oscars of the podcast industry, and you actually do have a shot. The Podcast Academy, who runs those, tries really hard. In fact, I would say they go out of their way to try to make it as equitable as they can and make sure indie creators have a shot at winning. And like Maribel said, there have been multiple creators in the community who have won. So do it.
that says something like that. I do think that we have done a good job in the last few years of expanding the reach of the Ambies and expanding the access to them. So entries are open until August 5th. Make sure that you learn more by going to thepodcastacademy.com. And if you have any questions, sign up for our newsletter if you want to know more about how to get that membership, that free membership that we have. Okay, last topic of this episode. I don't know if we call it an episode. It's weird to say that, but kind of like an episode. So last topic of What's Poppin' this time is the reemergence of chat show dominance.
Yeah, so this is an interesting article that recently came out of Vulture by Nick Kwa. So if you don't know Nick Kwa, he's quite the respected journalist in digital content creation in general, but particularly podcasting. And he writes for Vulture now, or writes with Vulture now. And really good article about how, so chat shows for a long time in like the heyday, or like, I guess the first like big emergence, like when podcasting really popped, it was like all of a sudden all these chat shows came. And that was a format that really dominated the industry. And then that sort of went away for a little while, right? It became narrative. And you see that in true crime and like other maybe certain political shows, news shows. Sometimes we're doing a lot of narratives. So narrative was the dominant, right?
Yeah, like documentary style.
Documentary style, right. But it's more expensive to create, right? And while it sort of dominated the conversation and people were getting a lot of news that way and learning a lot of new information, the pendulum has started to swing back, which is really interesting. And now chat shows have reemerged as the dominant format. And I think what's really interesting about podcasting in general, but particularly chat shows, is I think because you've talked about this, how much cheaper they are to make than other formats, especially like
cheap
fiction.
is a relative word. I don't love using that one, but less expensive.
They're not cheap. That's fair. They're not cheap to make. They're less expensive than narrative, documentary style, or especially like fiction.
Right? Yeah, they just, a chat show can be Tenji and I right here. This is a chat show essentially, talking about whatever topics you have in mind. Maybe bringing a guest on, having an interview. They're not as expensive to make or they're less expensive to make because you don't have to write lengthy scripts and you don't have to do a significant amount of research if you don't want to. I mean, some people still do though.
Some of them should.
Yeah, and they should.
Some, I can think of somewhere I'm like, I don't know why you're talking about this. You have zero expertise. You are a comedian and you don't know anything about the medical field. So
okay, that just made my day.
Stay in your lane, sir.
Yeah, some people should. But because of those aspects of that, like a little bit less pre-production, a lot less post-production, it saves people money. And so companies in the last couple of years were unfortunately, to me, I feel that it's unfortunate because I love documentary style and that's what I worked in for many years. That's been going away a little bit. Companies have been kind of cutting those budgets and going toward the chat show format. I'm not going to get into a debate of whether it's good or bad for the industry as a whole right now. I just think that it is interesting to note that chat shows are having this big resurgence, I guess. And I think that that's great because it allows for a lot of creators who are independent to come into this format, to experience it, to try it out, and maybe to have some more success. And it's not just like, oh, I need to have, $10,000 per episode to create this amazing show. Like, things are a little bit more accessible right now. So those are my 2 cents.
I don't know if it's good or bad for the industry. I think what's most interesting about that particular format is that we're seeing how it has the power to sort of dominate national conversations around really important topics. There's a lot of chat shows that are taking on the topic of like abortion rights in America and what's happening at the federal level and how that's trickling down and playing out in very specific scenarios across different states. And so we see shows like that. Hopefully they're being talked about by experts, right? Not just randoms.
Well researched.
Well researched and informed
Yeah.
experts. But they do have the power to dominate national conversations. And I think more and more we see people going to maybe some chat shows or different types of non-traditional media outlets for their information now, which I think is what the underlying conversation around this is about.
That's actually a really good point. Yeah. So, anyway, let us know what your thoughts are. If you have a chat show, put it in the comments. We want to know about it. And keep us posted on all of your doings. Make sure you are a part of the community by going to BIPOCPodcastCreators.com and clicking that join button. And then also join our email list at BIPOCPodcastCreators.com/newsletter. Thank you so much, y'all. We went a little bit over on time, but I think we did a pretty good job. And we'll see you next time.
Smooches.